Hey, what's going on there guys? Nick here from Absolute MTG, and today we're going to be taking a look at Esper control for the Khans of Tarkir Season of Standard. So the upside to playing Esper Control as opposed to any of the other two color combinations like blue-white or blue-black is that we get to be very greedy and we get to play all of the good cards that are actually in the Esper colors. Now the only downside to Esper is really that we don't have a tricolored land and we're limited to playing our scry lands and our fetch lands in here that are color appropriate. Otherwise, like Jeskai has the tricolored land which gives them a little bit more stable of a mana base. Otherwise, the deck's just really sweet. So the way that the deck actually wins and the win conditions that we have here are Resolute Archangel, Ashiok Nightmare Weaver, Sorin Solemn Visitor, and Elspeth Sun's Champion. So the Elspeth makes tokens for us and floods the board while also offering a Wrath for big creatures with power 4 or greater. Sorin is basically going to make a 2/2 for us and allow us to ride a game out on that once we're done like getting rid of our opponent's threats. And also we can gain some life back off of the +1 that he has. Ashiok is basically just going to start milling our opponent. In the slower matchups, it's really good because it can just mill out our opponent, but even in the like mid-range matchups, we can potentially get a win condition or even a threat on the board that our opponent would otherwise have, and we can start beating them with their own cards. And then the Resolute Archangel is basically one of those cards that you can play late game, you can reset your life total to 20, and then you can start bashing for 4 in the air. The deck protects itself and gets rid of your opponent's threats with Disruption based on Thoughtseize, and removal with cards like Bile Blight, Hero's Downfall, Utter End, Murderous Cut, and End Hostilities. So the Bile Blight's really good because cards like Goblin Rabblemaster are just rampant in the format. It also hits things like Hordeling Outburst, which is great, and Elspeth tokens in the Control Mirror match. Hero's Downfall pretty much hits every value card that you want in the format as far as like creatures and planeswalkers go, and it's pretty universal. It can still hit Stormbreath Dragon, so that's what we love. Our Utter End is pretty much going to be able to exile any non-land permanent that we want, except for like Stormbreath Dragon, so that's pretty much the only limitation that Utter End has as far as the meta goes. We have Murderous Cut, which can destroy a creature and we can delve for it, which makes it a perfect card to catch opponents whenever they're not really paying attention to you only having like one black mana open and nothing else, where you can just delve into it and get rid of like a Stormbreath Dragon or a Siege Rhino or something like that in an instant speed. End Hostilities, pretty much just blowing up everything, is our kind of ace in the hole against overcommitted board states. And then, as most control decks would have it, we have 4 counter spells in the form of Dissolve, and for our draw engine we have 4 Dig Through Time, which is pretty much like one of the best control cards that we have in the format right now. So for the sideboard of the deck, I'm playing 3 Brimaz, I'm playing 4 Nyx-Fleece Ram, 2 Drown in Sorrow, a singleton Utter End to complement the one that we have in the main board, 2 Negate, 2 Disdainful Stroke, and a singleton Fated Retribution. So where each card fits into place. So the Brimaz is really good up against the low CMC aggro decks like Red Sly because it blocks creatures really well. It and its tokens are going to have vigilance, so every turn you can attack and you can get some more presence out onto the board and more cards that will ultimately just trump what your opponent's trying to do. Brimaz is also really good in the control mirror because your opponent is going to be siding out any amount of removal that they're actually playing, so like their cards like End Hostilities and their creature removal that would otherwise be dead. So setting in more creatures is usually a good plan that we want to actually utilize, and it'll catch a lot of control opponents off guard because they can't really make the assumption that you are or you aren't siding in any amount of creatures. So the Brimaz ends up being a very good tech against the control mirror. For our Nyx-Fleece Ram, it's really just down to like the tempo matchups and the aggro matchups. It's good at chumping like smaller creatures. It's even good at blocking like Goblin Rabblemaster before it becomes like way too much of a problem. And usually we can bait out our opponent to overcommit to a board because we're not getting rid of a Rabblemaster, and then we just kind of wipe everything away while we're gaining 1 at each one of our upkeeps from the Nyx-Fleece Ram itself. The 2 Drown in Sorrow are basically for, like, again, the low CMC aggro decks. It's also really good up against the Mardu decks that have, like, more of a token aspect to them if they're like utilizing Mardu Charm to create tokens, raise the alarm, even just like their Rabble Masters and their Hordling Outbursts. I'll side in some amount of Drown in Sorrows based on the matchup and what I've seen, but any of the low CMC decks that are running like a lot of X2 or less creatures, Drown in Sorrows is just something you want to be bringing in. The other end sides in whenever you need some more removal against like Planeswalkers and good mid-range creatures. It's kind of bad against Stormbreath Dragon, so against the Stormbreath Dragon decks I tend to use my other end first and then keep like cards that are going to actually be able to hit the Stormbreath Dragon, so like Hero's Downfall, I want to keep that card because it's more universal for us. The other end is also good for the matchups where your opponent's playing like a lot of Banishing Lights, and it's even good for the Jeskai Ascendancy combo because if the decks are relying on the Ascendancy to actually win, we can get rid of the Ascendancy and just kind of leave them dry. For the Negate, it's basically for the high Planeswalker decks. If they're running a lot of copies of Planeswalkers or siding in more of them, the Negate can really just kind of get rid of that problem for us. Even just decks that are playing a lot of non-creature spells, we want to be siding in the Negate for them. And it's pretty much just a given for the control matchup. And Disdainful Stroke. Disdainful Stroke's pretty much just any deck that's running a lot of spells that are 4 CMC or greater, we want to side it in. So like the Abzan matchup, sometimes the Mardu matchup, it really depends on what your opponent's shown you and what you could expect that they would be siding in against you. So if they show you like after game 2 that they're siding in more Sarkons or like high CMC cards like that, then you decide that you want to bring in another Disdainful Stroke or two. And then Fated Retribution is the last card. It's kind of a more unusual card right now as opposed to like the previous season of Standard. However, the Fated Retribution is still really good. At an instant speed for 7 mana, destroy all creatures and planeswalkers. If it's our turn, we get to scry 2. Usually we're not playing it during our turn. Usually this card is going to be siding in up against decks like Mardu and Abzan. And it's really just good because at an instant speed, your opponent can play like Nissa or something like that, or even an Elspeth. And we can just wipe the board if we're playing from behind. So even though it gets rid of our planeswalkers, if we're playing from behind, Fated Retribution is just really, really good. So that is our deck tech for Esper Control. The entire deck list is going to be in the description where you guys can check it out. There's also going to be a link to DeckStats.net where you guys can take a look at the deck and take a look at everything that's in there and also look at prices and whatnot. But until next time, guys, thank you for watching and peace out.
If you guys want to keep up to date with everything that we have going on here at Absolute MTG, remember to hit that subscribe button, like us on Facebook, and follow us on Twitter for all of your Magic the Gathering needs. Also, remember to check out our sponsors of the channel, MTG Madness and AVUgames.com. But as always, thank you guys for watching.